Hey, welcome back to Trek on the Tube. Today, we are talking about what is probably the most successful episode of Lower Decks to date. Season 2, Episode 6, The Spy Humongous. And yes, I do mean what I said. I actually think that this episode of Lower Decks was the best at being a Lower Decks episode. And in that respect, it turned out to be one of the best episodes of the series, if not the best. I also do think, however, it might remain a bit of an underdog or an underrated episode in the years to come, due to the fact it didn't necessarily present us with a high-concept sci-fi idea, or it didn't give us a big reveal or cameo appearance. Comparatively speaking, it would actually be a pretty tame episode of Lower Decks, but God, was it good. I mean, for starters, not only did we actually get a story about the Lower Decks and the Lower Deckers doing Lower Decks things, which is not as common as you'd think it is in this show, but we also finally got story development when it comes to the Pack-Leds. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not one to want the show to become fully serialized. On the contrary, I absolutely love the episodic format, but having one grander plot thread weave its way through the seasons is very welcome because it adds a certain background goal to the show, kind of like how Voyager had the ultimate goal of getting the crew back to Earth. Giving shows an endgame, pun intended, even if it's far off in the distance, far off in the background, somehow seems to help shows not get lost. The Walking Dead, for example, has no real goal. It has no real objective or endgame, and it's been years since the show has felt like anything other than a vagabonding corpse of what it once was. Anyway, the Pack-Leds. The voice acting was outstanding, the dialogue was more than convincing. Their entire species, from established lore to what the episode introduced, is so perfect for this show, and the concept of them sending a spy aboard what they think is one of the most important ships in Starfleet's fleet is hilarious, especially since they're trying to pretend they want to negotiate this peace treaty but are clearly too disorganized to do so. Every so-called leader of Pack-led planet is as dumb as the next. The spy himself manages to space himself. I mean, all these little stories and details are brilliant, but as we said earlier, we then get some actual development. First of all, the spy survives. Like, holy shit. Pack-Leds can survive the vacuum of space. This is new information. Then we learn that the Pack-Leds are planning an attack, and there you go. The Cerritos will surely relay that information to Starfleet, and the show itself has a goal now. The ship has a mission, the show has a mission to stop this Pack-Led attack. Concerning the more self-contained aspects of the plot, because they were just as good, having our four main characters split up in this way was nice, especially considering this was already how the group was split up when Boimler was on the Titan, so I feel like the bond between Rutherford, Tendi, and Mariner is pretty strong already. Small side note, am I the only one that read romance in that Boimler and Tendi moment at the end? Like, the way both the characters were animated lying on the ground next to each other, I don't know. Anyways, Boimler himself goes on a small adventure of self-discovery and growth, I guess, with the invincible red shirts of the Lower Decks, while the other three find themselves roped into a story that was the best and most naturally written excuse the show could do to have bizarre sci-fi things happen to them all the time. And then, of course, by the end of the episode, as both Lower Decker plots wrap up and all the emotional beats are hit, the stories connect, and the episode pays off a joke from the beginning, Tendi finding Boimler's mishaps funny. Hot damn, was the Spy Humongous well executed and well conceived. Not only that, but as usual, it was also absolutely visually stunning. It showed immense creativity and respect for established elements with the Pack-Led planet and the Pack-Leds. All the voice acting was great and the music was noticeably interesting, and it was funny. Oh, of course it's funny. It's a comedy. It's a sitcom. No. It was genuinely funny. You see, sitcoms, for me at least, are generally not funny. They're fun, but not funny. I usually get one laugh per episode, even if nowadays, you know, with shows like What We Do in the Shadows or Ted Lasso, I seem to be laughing more. Either I'm softening up or the quality of TV is improving. I'm gonna go with the latter, but I digress. This episode of Lower Decks had me chuckling throughout, you know, from beginning to end, which is a first for this show. I would actually argue it was the funniest episode, or rather the most consistently funny to date. The screaming orange slug blob, for example, Shax shouting, "Get out of my chair," the Pack-Led spacing himself, the Captain Janeway line that just kept coming back, the Kzinti crew member arching his back forward and then back again to show Boimler the correct posture. Being a reference to the animated series is such a specific joke to Star Trek and to Star Trek animation. I mean, it can only be done in this show specifically. Kayshawn and Ransom looking for the pack lead. Where could he be? He's giant and he's brown. And Boimler's speech, I mean, the fake one, you know, the first one, the one where he sounded a lot like Morty from Rick and Morty. I mean, he even drops the classic Mr. Meeseeks, yes sirree, at the end. Maybe he sounded more like Justin Roiland, actually, than Morty himself. Point is, it sounded very Rick and Morty. God, this went by quick. Video reviews, I guess, are shorter when you've got nothing to say, but they're also shorter when you've got nothing to complain about and you've got nothing but compliments to give. Compliments are shorter than criticisms and critiques. So, yeah. Thumbs up to everyone. You did a good job. I'm loving the show, and this episode was fantastic. Congratulations to everyone involved. Entertaining on every level. Funny, beautiful, full of heart, because, yeah, Boimler's little story put forward all the best that Starfleet and Star Trek have to offer. Hey, hi, Editing Toddy here. Can you believe it? Can you actually believe it? When I was writing my script for this review, I completely forgot to mention Amos. And then I went and recorded, I filmed a bonus part that was supposed to go right here at this moment in the video, where I talked about Amos, but for some friggin' reason, I've lost the video, I've lost the recording. Anyway, so here we are. We're talking about Amos. Amos was amazing. The return of Amos was perfectly executed. The placement within the episode, the little stinger at the end, it was absolutely wonderful. It's a genius thing to make fun of a character that is just pure evil. He's a vile being. There's nothing good, nothing redeemable about him, so you don't feel guilty making fun of him and having a laugh. I don't know, it was fantastic. It was the best possible return and use for Amos. So, yeah. Just like the rest of the episode, it was fantastic. Alright, let's move on to the Easter eggs and references. There's not that much this time around, so should go quick. Amos himself, so that we don't forget him again, was first shown in The Next Generation. His look, the look of the planet, from both orbit and the surface, were all faithfully recreated in Lower Decks. The same can be said about the Enterprise D bridge. This is a bridge from The Next Generation, and it was absolutely flawlessly recreated here, except for one small thing. This graphic on the original bridge from The Next Generation featured a top-down view of the ship, thus showing the upper decks. But in Boimler's imagination, the graphic depicted the belly of the ship, thus the lower decks, and that has to be done on purpose. Small side note, there's also a mention to the Enterprise by Shax in the beginning of the episode. Kayshawn at one point says Shaka, which is a nod to the very famous sentence, Shaka when the walls fell, from the episode of The Next Generation in which his species first appeared. One of the Pakleds says he is strong, which is one of their most famous lines from The Next Generation also. Another thing the Pakleds talk about is the Crimson Force Field, which is also a direct reference to that very same episode. Spoilers! It's not a real thing. The Crimson Force Field is not real. The Enterprise and the crew faked this thing, but clearly the poor Pakleds still, to this day, believe the lie. This emblem or logo that has now become the Pakled emblem didn't exist originally, but has been seen before in this season of Lower Decks on the flag here. Originally though, it was just a sort of belt buckle on the Pakled's uniforms in The Next Generation. These guys, the red shirts that call themselves this way because it makes them feel invincible, is clearly a reference to the pop culture meme of red shirts always dying first in the original series and thus being not invincible at all. We hear the name Captain Janeway repeated multiple times. She was the captain in Star Trek Voyager. Kate Mulgrew will be reprising her role for the upcoming Prodigy. The Kzinti, as we mentioned earlier, made a joke about posture, and for a second there, he was animated in a way very reminiscent to how other Kzinti were in the animated series. This flower attacks Mariner by, I don't know, spitting shit at her. Well, we all thought of the famous Spock versus Flower encounter from the original series when that happened. Tendi opens a Three Little Pigs book, and the fairy tale, I guess, comes to life with the three little pigs running around the quarters. A similar thing happened on Deep Space Nine with Sisko and Rumpelstiltskin. This device, as pointed out by Yerk on Twitter, has been seen before in Voyager. Among the garbage collected by Tendi, Mariner, and Rutherford are nanobots. We've seen nanites before, also nanoprobes in Star Trek. I couldn't tell you the difference, although the votes on Twitter clearly state that nanites would win in a fight, so I mean, there's that. And finally, this is an original series era earpiece. And there you have it. I do hope you're enjoying Lower Decks as much as I am, or at least I hope you're enjoying my videos about Lower Decks. At least there's that. Thank you ever so much for watching, liking, subscribing, commenting, sharing, doing all of those wonderful things. A huge thank you to all of the channel patrons, and yes, there's a new one down there. Don't think that you new patrons go unnoticed. I am very, very grateful. Thank you so much. Your help is immensely appreciated. Live long and prosper.